AD20XX. Megaman has defeated the evil Dr. Wily time and time again. It's thanks to him that the world is able to enjoy such a time of peace. Dr. Wily has not been heard from in years, and yet, a new threat looms over the horizon. Robots begin attacking the city. Could this be Dr. Wily? Yet again? What's happening? I don't know, but it's certainly nothing good. My metal brothers and sisters, we are more than mere tools for the humans. Why should they control us? What's to stop us from having free will? We must rise up, and together we will take back the world for ourselves. If you humans try to oppose us, you will be destroyed. Oh no. Proto Man, what do you think you're doing? Why is this happening? Something doesn't seem right about this. I know my brother, and he would never say something like this. You plan on putting a stop to all this, don't you? I have to. I need to live up to my title as a... super fighting robot. Thank you, Megaman. We're all counting on you. Don't worry, I'll get to the bottom of this. Proto Man, this isn't like you. I don't know what's exactly going on, but I won't allow you to hurt anyone. Continuing my little semi-occasional Mega Man fan game playthrough, hello everyone and welcome to Let's Play Mega Man Super Fighting Robot. I never thought I'd actually get to say that phrase in regards to this series and not have it be a meme, because I love that opening song for the Ruby Spears cartoon. Notable, this is what my options are looking like. I actually changed the audio balance a little bit later on, so if things sound a bit different from like part 2 or 3 onwards, that's why. Let's head to the stage select where we can see our 8 Robot Masters for the game. There's about 2 I would recommend as good first stages, but I'm going after one I wouldn't recommend first, because frankly speaking, Wizardman just has too much good stuff for me. If I had to recommend someone to go after first in your first playthrough, I'd say either Axeman or Soakman would probably be the best bets. And one thing I will note is that if this game looks similar behind the whole, beyond the whole Mega Man thing to Mega Man Rock Force, the most recent Mega Man fan game I played, that's because I believe these games share an engine, at least in terms of like the fan engine they use to make it. So that's the main reason there. Either way, Wizardman's main stage gimmick is that in various pits throughout the stage, there are going to be arrows in them pointing downwards. Those indicate those pits aren't instant death pits, they instead loop to the equivalent pit on the top of the screen. Because of that, you're going to have to actually keep in mind, sometimes falling down is actually going to be the solution to your problems. However, this stage is actually arguably one of the hardest of the main 8, because first off, you got those wizard hat wearing med tools. I know every enemy in this game has a name that's shown in the credits, but I can't remember most of them from the top of my head. And the big thing with them is that unless you're charging a shot directly in front of their face, whenever you shoot, they fire, and you need to jump over that as quickly as you can, otherwise you're taking pretty big damage. Also, I chose this stage just to get the Yoku blocks out of the way, because, God, it's fun platforming, but everyone hates these to an extent. Just that every Mega Man game needs them, because they're the ritual and classic at this point. Now, the most annoying enemy in this stage is more than likely the little Wizard Joes we saw a few moments ago. The thing about them is they're not always available to be damaged. Whenever they're doing their attack animation, which is pretty lengthy, they have technically a shield covering their entire body. And their attack's pretty hard to dodge because you're going to need to slide twice in a row to be able to even have the speed to dodge the lightning bolts they summon. Thankfully, most enemies in this stage, from my memory, can probably go down in 2 charge shots, so as long as you're keeping that going, you should be fine. Or you can just mash the button, that too. Now, unlike Mega Man Rock Force, whose creator, along with that one fan artist, Karakato, made official art for each of the Robot Masters and even a bio, no such thing actually exists for the Super Fighting Robot Masters, even though I think Karakato actually does have a couple of art pieces for these Robot Masters. I think they've done Axeman. I think just recently, for me, as in like the past month or two, they did one for Dagger Man. Oh, I just messed up. Because I actually want to go along the bottom path there, even though there's all the screws, because as you can see, there's a letter there. Take a guess what getting all the letters in a Mega Man fan game does. You're probably right. This is technically a 100% run, though you're going to actually see something that I'm not going to go in depth about for a couple of parts yet until I grab one fresh on screen. And that is, throughout certain stages in the game, there are little CD-looking things in the stages. You're going to see one in both this stage and the next stage, I know for a fact. However, in these stages, they're going to be kind of transparented and grayed out. That's because I've already grabbed them. Those are secret discs. They only unlock on the second playthrough. And since I did a test playthrough and I had played this game at least once or twice before, they're already unlocked. And I already have a couple of them. What those do is that they unlock something in the bonus menu. Usually just some sort of option to make you super powerful or make super challenge runs possible. I'll go more in depth about those in a while. I should not have made that jump. Yoku blocks can be a bit of a thing collision-wise sometimes. In fact, I paused there because I was stunned. Now, my experience with this particular Mega Man fan game is fairly similar to Rock Force, in that I found out about it through a YouTuber. The exact same YouTuber even, Rome Mithril. But I think I saw this LP before the Rock Force one, even though I think the Rock Force one was a few years younger at that point. And that mostly comes down to... because I remember distinctly, I was watching his LP of this during freshman year in college, and my friend Jordan, who you might recall from the Wily Wars LP, in his dorm room between classes, because that's where we all kind of chilled out. And it's just weird looking back that was 4 years ago, going on 4.5 and 5. And that just made me realize that I'm almost done with college. Huh. In fact, by the time this comes out, it's probably April or May. Oh, Jesus. That's, In terms of the stage itself, though, beyond the gimmicks, I think Wizardman is probably around the middle in terms of the difficulty of the stages for this game. Because the Yoku blocks, yeah, they suck, and everyone hates them. But compared to some other games I've played in the franchise and fan franchise, they're nowhere near as complicated, so you can get through it pretty simply. The biggest source of difficulty in the stage is Wizardman himself, because he's complicated. He's gonna be floating back and forth, shooting his magic missile ability at you twice. They home in on you slightly, so you're supposed to jump in between them like that. After doing about 2 volleys of that, he'll split himself up left and right and fire one of 2 projectiles. Either the ice one, which is fast and freezes you on contact, causing you to be open for another attack until you mash quickly enough, or a fireball, which will travel slowly across the screen but leave 3 little very powerful residue shots. I think the fire does the most damage out of anything he does, so you need to be careful there. And because of all that combining together, he makes for not an easy first choice. It's like going after Frostman first in Mega Man 7. Not the best choice for newcomers, but I will say it's worth it because of 2 things. One, I think he has probably the most useful special weapon in the game, and we also get Rush Jet for beating him. We get the Magic Missile, which seems pretty weak. You can aim it slightly, I believe, by mashing or holding a certain direction, but it homes in on enemies like nothing else. We'll talk more about that in a few moments, though, because after I save, it's time for us to check out this game's shop. We got the usual stuff, lives, E-tanks, M-tanks, the energy saver. We also got the the energy bouncer, and now we have the energy saver, which doubles your special weapon ammo. Hair dye just changes Light's beard color. And here we have the Mega Man upgrades. He has proper, like, Mega Man X suit parts in this game. And getting all those can really make or break the game for you, because they can make the game super easy. But now it's time for us to head to our second Robot Master, Dagger Man, who is probably my favorite design out of them, despite being similar enough to Swordman, Blade Man, whatever his name was. Actually, no, those are both names. If we check the pause screen, though, we can see that each of the weapons has a very specific description. For instance, the magic missile homes in on the nearest target, and if that enemy is already destroyed by another one, it finds a new target immediately. And it destroys most small enemies in one hit. What it doesn't say is that it'll also more or less kill most enemies in 2 hits. With the amount of homing this thing has, this weapon is arguably broken? Dare I call it the metal blade of the game? Yeah, it's basically metal blades. Either way, Dagger Man stage is... the closest analog I can think of it, theming-wise, is Sheepman stage from 10. Because we're in a virtual world, if you can't tell by the sortie viruses from Battle Network that we're facing, and also little devils. But the main gimmick of it is these little, I don't want to call them mystery datas, but that's clearly what they're modeled after, which act as teleporters between the same colored gem. The important thing to note is that your momentum isn't preserved, but your direction is. So if I jump into this one, I will start heading up immediately. Or at least that's how a lot of them work. I think it depends on your actual momentum all the same. These turret enemies are a bit annoying. They seem simple at first, but the lower their HP gets, the faster they spin, meaning they're going to be shooting out more often. By the way, there's one of the disc things I talked about. I forgot to mention the one at the end of Wizardman stage. If you want to get that disc, you have to jump into that purple one from the top. Despite me having grabbed a couple already, I left some in the stages just for those that I could grab. Let me start the sentence over again. I left some alone in the stages because, first off, some of them don't show up until way later in the game. But also because I wanted to have a good time to bring them up in Let's Play, because I knew I wanted to do one of this game after the first playthrough. So that's where I'll be talking about those later on. We're coming up on the mini-boss for this stage, though, which those proficient with deep Mega Man lore will probably recognize it. It's Krork, or however you're supposed to pronounce that. This thing was basically the final boss of the first Mega Man DOS game. A game no one likes to bring up, and someday I'll get to it. Probably, I don't know. I know there's a fan remake of it out there, which maybe I'll cover that instead, just to get DOS out of the way, but at the same time, when am I ever going to get to play a game in glorious, glorious CGA? Cyan, bright pink, and black. Totally doesn't burn the eyes. One thing I will say about the game that kind of happened there is that sometimes the sound compression isn't exactly the best when a bunch of sounds loop on top of each other. The best comparison I can make to it in another Mega Man game is the Anniversary Collection, especially whenever you're playing Mega Man 8 on it and you get to Grenade Man stage where all the explosion effects are on top of each other instead of just being one. That happens semi-regularly here, depending on how much you fire charge shots and how many enemies you hit at once. And especially if you have the sound effects volume all the way at the top. This stage is, I actually would argue, this is probably the easiest stage out of the 8. But the big thing with it, though, is Dagger Man himself, Buster only, isn't easy. At all, really. Mostly just due to the fact that when we get to him, you'll see he's pretty agile. Admittedly, though, I do like that the game has that kind of balance, because, yeah, a lot of Mega Man games have a very easy stage, easy boss stage that, even though you can take on stages in any order, you're kind of supposed to take on first, like Cutman in 1, Chill Penguin in X1, so on and so forth. This game does a good job of, if the stage is easy, the boss will be a little harder to compensate and vice versa. Though, thankfully, most of the stages in this game kind of balance out with the boss and difficulty. If it's... the biggest problem with the game's difficulty on the whole, as we'll see, is that sometimes damage can be a little bit higher than it probably should be. I'll be real with you. I'm looking at the next stage in particular. Compared to some other games that have had the letters, like Mega Man 5, or I think Mega Man 5 for Game Boy, or Rockman World 5 had them, and especially Rock Force. The letters in this game are very simple to get, though. They're always in the straightforward pathway. Either way, it's time for Dagger Man, who takes a bit of a note out of Boomer Kawanger by teleporting all over the place. He'll like to try and zoom in above you first to fire down his dagger, which then cause a horizontal shockwave in both directions. After trying to teleport into you and do some dash attacks, he does a 1-2 slash, where you're supposed to jump over both of them at once instead of trying to stand between them, or jump between them, and then jump again. With his weakness, as you can see, very easy. Without his weakness, that's a hard fight. A fun fight, but it's hard. And for beating him, we get... I forget the name of this build that's on my head, but hey, look, the power-up art's based off the Smash 4 art. Flash Dagger, okay. The way this one works is that if you hold the button, the dagger will stay in place as an active hitbox, but once you let go of it, it moves forward and travels quickly. It can pierce some enemy shields, I believe. The big thing with it, though, is that if you hold down the button long enough, Mega Man actually enters a brief period of invincibility without getting hit. So if you're having trouble getting through a section with low HP, you can use that to your advantage. And now it's time for probably the hardest out of the 8 stages, Axeman's. This stage wants you dead. The big gimmick with it, aside from looking like a Metal Man stage and even having conveyor belts, is that everything is out to kill you. There are giant explosions all over the place, there are giant axes that will do at least a third of your health if you touch them. That's more like equally half. This stage wants you dead. My best advice for that is just take your time. Because the axes, the way they work is each swing, their speed, I want to say doubles, until the apex of the third or fourth swing, in which case they reset to their original momentum, and then you're supposed to use that to your advantage to be able to go either above them or below them, depending on their placement in the screen. Thankfully, compared to some other games, I feel my luck with getting large health drops in this game is relatively good compared to, especially, I think, my practice runs for Rock Force, where health drops just never happened for some damn reason. We also got enemies that will just try to drop out of the sky at you. That's mostly there for later platforming segments. So you remember the drill bit enemies from 2? Yeah, they're all over the place in this stage. Magic Missile says no to their existence, though. Unlike the ones in Mega Man 2, though, these ones only show up in predetermined locations. And by that, I mean not just the hallway, but their spot in the hallway. They always show up at these exact intervals in the actual stage design. Meaning they're much more used as obstacles than enemies here, and honestly, I much prefer that. Can't destroy those things with that, though. That actually requires Axeman's weapon itself. Also, wait, another thing that this game did, that Rock Force did as well, but in case you didn't watch that LP, when you charge up your Buster, it does the little widdly sound for a little bit, but then it fades away. You can choose that setting on the options, and God, it's just one of the best options that Fangames has ever given me. I love charging my shots in Mega Man, but let me tell you, hearing that song for too long gets annoying, especially in, Powered Up with Mega Man C, X8 it gets annoying, and I've basically tuned it out at this point in X4, but it's not a great sound effect. I want to say on the whole, the stages in this game are longer than your average Mega Man game, but I can't tell if that's just my more careful playstyle that's doing that in this game in particular, because due to the fact that enemies in this game can hurt at times, let alone boss fights, I tend to play this game a little bit slower than, say, Rock Force, for instance, or even Mega Man Rock and Roll, or several others. This stage, I believe, is where we've also first seen these enemies, which are basically this game's spin off of things we've seen in Mega Man since Mega Man 1, more or less. The usual turn enemies, but in this game, they're surprisingly strict about the timing for when they open and close, so if you're trying to take them out, you either need to charge shot preemptively or use something that can pierce shields, which none of our weapons can technically at the moment. I think the Flash Dagger can occasionally, but you're really going to want to use something like what Axeman's going to give us. Don't be surprised, by the way, from now on, if you see me using Magic Missile during most of the stages, because it really is just better than the Mega Buster here at the start of the game. Since so many enemies go out to get taken out by it so quickly, it's just ridiculous. Either way, we're coming up on Axeman himself, and due to the Flash Dagger's damage, he's not going to be lasting too long. One of the biggest things to note about this boss is that he damages you just by landing from his jumps, and that is very key information. Otherwise, the biggest thing he does is that he can throw his axe in a couple of different arcs, very high, very low, straight ahead, more or less. He can also just outright try to strike you with it if you're within close range of him, and I think it'll also shoot out projectiles, but I might be thinking of the boss he's weak, that's weak to his weapon. Yeah, it shoots out a few projectiles. My best advice for this is just keep on jumping consistently, and if you can bait him into landing on Flash Dagger, do it. Otherwise, just spam it into his face, and hopefully he'll be taken out before you're taken out. And for beating him, we get that very axe attack he threw at us a couple times. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it's very big and very powerful. It can also pierce shield to take out a couple enemies within a couple of shots. It can also hit multiple times with one use, which is pretty important. You can also aim it up and down a little bit. Giant axe, okay, just very straight up. So you can aim it up like that, or down like this. I can't get that to work for some reason. I've never been able to get that to work. Otherwise, it's still a very useful weapon, and any enemy or boss that's weak to it, you can still take out without using that, but I don't know why, I've just never been able to get it to aim correctly. Either way, with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 2, we're going to be heading after more Robot Masters as is usual. See you guys then.